Coming up on Front Porch Politics. Government pandemic restrictions largely silenced the entertainment industry, but it also helped keep these treasured industries alive. Now they're making a comeback. We'll get an exclusive look at the long road back for the Charlotte Symphony.
That sense of coming together, I can't even begin to describe how excited we are.
In Hickory, we get an exclusive look at the road back to the Comedy Club for North Carolina native John Reed.
Give it up for John Reed!
And is he running for mayor?
So the citizens of Hickory should feel comfortable with their future in your hands.
I don't know about that.
And America's pastime. Government restrictions canceled the 2020 minor league baseball season.
Welcome back to Fogg County Stadium.
But after more than 600 days gone, we are there behind the scenes.
Back in April, I had hair.
As it makes its glorious return.
Welcome to Front Porch Politics. I'm Tim Boyum. We're coming to you here from Bynum Front Porch in Chatham County in the central part of our state, where they held their first music series since 2019 because of COVID. You know, government restrictions have had a huge impact on the entertainment industry here in North Carolina, kept it shuttered for most of last year, if not even longer. But government also helped keep some of these entertainers alive through stimulus. We're going to tell some of the stories of making that big comeback. And we start with the Charlotte Symphony.
Glad to have you back. We missed you.
It's a spring Saturday night in Charlotte. Anticipation fills the air. Like that moment before a reunion with an old friend.
It's been over a year.
250 Charlotte Symphony fans about to see something they have not seen in nearly 14 months. Live music indoors.
Sense of being with a group that loves good music, and there's something about seeing it in person that you can't quite get when you're streaming it on Zoom or something.
And you are downstairs in the orchestra, sir. Enjoy your evening.
Inside, as eager fans find their seats, Maestro Christopher James Lees gives us a sense of the feeling behind the scenes.
There's an electricity backstage. The vibe is very high. We're all very excited for the celebration and the return of music tonight in Charlotte.
Just days before, we were there as the musicians held their final rehearsals. What a strange trip it's been to reach this moment.
We had just done the dress rehearsal for The Empire Strikes Back. We were going to perform with the film. I was conducting.
Wow.
We knew things were starting to happen and we were getting a little nervous, but it wasn't until after the dress rehearsal we were told that everything was shutting down, and we thought this might be a few weeks. Maybe we could start doing things again in May, and it slowly became apparent that this was going to be a long-haul experience.
March 2020, Maestro Lees abruptly forced to put down that baton and deal with a new reality.
For me personally, I'm a pianist, so I sat at my piano, wept and improvised to get all the emotions out, but I also have a young child, so I immediately pivoted into homeschool preschool, which is a different skill set than orchestral conducting.
This place is my backyard.
Musician Alan Black's wrapping up his 35th season with the Charlotte Symphony. Clearly one of the strangest, and at moments filled with fear.
It was actually quite scary because we started hearing like the Metropolitan Opera shut down, like just shut down. New Yorkville shut down. Nashville totally shut down. Like no pay, no health insurance, nothing, just gone. And I thought, oh my God, I hope, what's going to happen to us?
It was, of course, an interesting time to make the move.
In the middle of it all, David Fisk was named president and CEO of the Symphony. What a time to take on a new job.
So pre-COVID, we had 58 musicians on full-time contract and about 25 staff. And I'm very thankful that we have not had to lay anybody off or furlough. And we've been able to put everybody to work. We've been able to adapt and provide alternative kinds of employment for musicians who weren't able to come back and play with us. Because, of course, there are certain instruments that are more dangerous in projecting aerosols.
While government restrictions forced the symphony into silence, the government also kept it afloat.
For us, it's been essential. So we were very grateful to receive both PPP-1 and PPP-2. And then we're also eligible for the employee retention tax credits. and for the shuttered venue operators grant program that is about to come out. And we wouldn't have made it through without those grants. That has helped to replace our ticket revenue that we lost.
For the musicians, though, it left them out of sync.
It's part of our identity as musicians and as people, is those two things are very much intertwined. It was devastating to have to stop. And some of the members of our orchestra had never taken as much time off as COVID forced us to before we could safely perform again and start playing together again. And it was a real reckoning with how we engage with our art form, how we as people identify outside of our musical art.
We live and breathe music. I mean, in my whole life, I can't go more than like 3 weeks or I start getting really fidgety and I start feeling weird, like there's something wrong, because it's part of who we are. My instrument is sort of part of me, and I need it to express.
And that instrument, oh, that instrument. What a story of its own.
This is my cello that I bought from Yo-Yo.
Yo-Yo, as in Yo-Yo Ma. It was built in 1995 for the world-famous cello player, but he was looking for a new one in 2005, and Black was in the right place at the right time.
It's got knots on the front, which is really unusual. And Yo-Yo played this in the video, the documentary, "The Music of Strangers," and I know that because when I watched the video, I saw the knots, and I just about freaked out in my seat at the, because it's really unusual to have an instrument with knots in it.
That wood on the front, it dates back to the 1700s.
They're very expensive instruments.
They are very expensive. I mean, if
Tens
you're
of thousands of dollars.
tens of thousands. It's not uncommon for someone to have to pay between $80,000 and $100,000 for a cello, like a moderately priced instrument.
Musicians love to play their instruments, but they live to play with others. Desperate to fill that void during the pandemic, Black had an idea years in the making, turning his beautiful backyard into a recording stage.
And I approached the symphony and said, so here's the thing, I'm going to do outdoor concerts in my backyard with symphony players, and if you want, it would be great if if we could put them on the symphony Facebook and website, and they were like, sure, like, why not?
And just like that, Charlotte Symphony Al Fresco was born. The Charlotte Symphony at Home series also featured all kinds of memorable moments, including a trombone in a garage. How about the trumpeter in a front yard with neighbors off in the distance in lawn chairs? You can hear those summer bugs buzzing along. And look at that little baby rolling over, listening to the sweet sounds of her mom's oboe. While the online performances help fill a void, it pales in comparison to preparing for this first show back in person.
It's the difference between enjoying a nice meal at your dining room table with the people you see every single day and opening your home to friends and family and people that you've been longing to see for over a year. That sense of community, that sense of coming together, I can't even begin to describe how excited we are.
It means a lot.
God, I didn't expect that.
Where do you think this comes from? Is this boiled up from the past year?
I think we all have a I think it's a sense of release.
And then finally, the moment comes. 14 months in the making, a harmonious return inside the Belk Theater. On this night, despite masks and spacing, you can see and feel, for tonight at least, the sign life and music are slowly returning to normal.
You may have noticed there that not the full orchestra was on stage, of course not a full audience either. Symphony leaders say they hope to increase that over the coming months, of course depending on those government restrictions and how they change. By September at the latest, they hope to have that full orchestra and a full audience. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go to Hickory with John Reep, a comedian. We'll follow him as he hits the stage for one of the first times in more than a year. Welcome back to Front Porch Politics. I'm Tim Boyum, coming to you from Bynum Front Porch here in Chatham County in the central part of our state, where they've returned to live music in person for the first time since 2019 because of COVID regulations. And that's what we're talking about here, the entertainment industry getting back on its feet. And we head to Walhalla, South Carolina and Hickory, North Carolina for our next story with comedian John Reep. We hit the road with him for one of his first shows in almost a year. It's a story 25 years in the making.
Already driving from Hickory down to Walhalla, South Carolina, doing a show tonight with the very funny Reno Collier.
It's Easter weekend and John Reep's revved up.
I'm excited to get back out on the road. It's been a minute with the pandemic and the whatnot.
Yeah, we have a lot of stories.
He's headed to the Walhalla Performing Arts Center.
Rtdnac.
It's in South Carolina and one of his first shows since the pandemic hit.
Out of Greenville, South Carolina, please put your hands together for Tommy Donovan.
Reep shows up early to see a new comedian and friend Tommy Donovan open up for him. Reep's a North Carolina native and NC State grad.
Hey, that thing got a hammy.
The 49-year-old broke onto the scene with his Dodge commercial in 2004. Yes, people still ask him to this very day if that thing's got a Hemi.
He had the most votes cast.
But his big break in comedy came on NBC's Last Comic Standing in 2007.
Is John Reep.
He's done sitcoms, hosted his own comedy specials, and of course continued his comedy club tour until last March when COVID abruptly closed the curtain on comedy clubs nationwide.
Very nerve-wracking.
Backstage, we chat about returning to the spotlight.
So you're not nervous right now or anything?
A little bit. Yeah, because it's like I've done a couple gigs since then. And I did one like 2 weeks ago, Chattanooga. So I'm gonna be a tiny bit rusty, but I've got my set list. I actually got here early, not just to talk to you, but to also put it on the monitor. Like I have a piece of paper taped to the back of the monitor so the crowd can't see it, but I can see it. And if I'm up there, I can look down and go, oh yeah, that's the joke I want to do next.
Give it up for John Reep!
Ironically, one of Reep's first shows back is just miles from the spot that inspired him to make comedy a career. It was the mid-90s. The brand new Carolina Panthers were playing at Clemson while a stadium was built in Charlotte.
I'm dancing in the stands because I'm an idiot, and my friends, I'll just try to make my friends laugh by doing silly dances. And then by third quarter, my buddy Marty says, you got to get on that grass hill behind the goalpost so the whole stadium can see you. I'm like, oh, that's genius. When I think of that, it made me mad in a weird way. I'm like, that's good. So I get on the grass hill and I'm dancing, and the mascot sees me dancing. He just waves me out to dance with him. And before I can say yes or no, my friends throw me over the fence, and I'm out there, I'm dancing. And I start break dancing, and I'm doing the worm on the 5-yard line. And all of a sudden, these cheers turn to boos, but they're not booing me, they're booing the cops who are running out into the field to arrest me because they didn't see Sir Purr's invitation. But there's a whole video of this. And what we realized in that moment, we all discovered this together, was that Sir Purr does not have the authority to invite people onto the field.
The story even makes it on stage this night.
And they grabbed me by the back of my pants, and it's a full-on wedgie. The fact that that moment happened, and I made 75,000 people laugh without saying a word. And this moment lasted a while. It wasn't just the part on the field. It was everything leading up to it. It was fun. It was cool. And my buddy Marty, who had been hearing me talk about doing stand-up, finally said, you just made 75,000 people laugh without saying a word. At least go on stage and talk about this. And so in a weird way, had that moment not happened, we might not be here with this moment.
Reep's from Hickory, or as he famously calls it, a few years ago, after 18 years in LA, Reep had a light bulb moment.
I did miss my family, my friends, and my career was at a point where, you know what, I'm an established comedian. I could live anywhere and do this. I don't have to be in Los Angeles. In fact, most of my gigs were on the East Coast anyway. I was taking these long flights. The only reason I needed to be there was for acting auditions. And then recently, people have been submitting themselves, just recording themselves at home on an iPhone and just sending it in. That's how I got Harold and Kumar. That's how I got Eastbound and Down. I just recorded myself.
So Reep packed up and moved back in with his mom and dad in his childhood home.
Come on in. I will show you. This is the room that I grew up in right here. Not that big. And every morning when I wake up, I got to stare at this guy.
So did you ever think this kid would end up on national television?
No. I didn't. I'd fantasized about it. Because that kid was the class clown of the high school, as was my dad when he was a senior in high school.
Reep gets his sense of humor from his dad. When he moved home, it was a special trip.
The house went up, sold real quick, flew Dad out to Los Angeles. I flew him first class out to LA. We got all my stuff in the SUV and a U-Haul, and we drove it all the way back from Los Angeles to Hickory.
But a few months later, the laughs abruptly stopped.
It was horrible. It was on Thanksgiving Day. And I remember this is the first time we were getting a turkey from Bojangles. I was very excited for it. It smelled great. And Dad was sitting in front of the fireplace, and he just fell over and just hit the floor really hard with his forehead. And I thought, because my dad's funny, I thought he was joking at first. I thought he was making a joke about we hadn't eaten yet and he was getting low blood sugar and he passed out. I don't know. So I just started laughing. And then Jason's like, no, I think this is real. Like, he hit pretty hard.
A stroke has left half his body paralyzed, and he lives in a skilled nursing facility. It's just a short walk, but with COVID protocols, they went almost a year without spending time in the same room.
So you guys would literally just walk up and hope that the windows were open? Or?
Yeah. Well, sometimes if you called ahead, the nurse would come here and open the windows for you, and you could talk to him and see him, and they would have their phone, and then we could hear him via the phone.
What up, bumpkins?
Professionally, COVID oddly boosted his creativity. He started a new podcast, Countryish.
It's walkie-talkie time.
And 2 new Facebook Live bits involving his mom, Betty, have become huge hits.
My Facebook fan page started growing randomly every time I would go live. So, well, Mom, let's just walk around the block and we'll walk and talk. And I just randomly belted out, walkie-talkie, and I just started doing it. And I just kept doing it. Now it's turned into a thing.
4 of these bad boys.
Ain't no way you're eating all that, baby.
No.
I'm eating it in my car with my mom, and people want to see that.
And then there's this bit I found.
I'm going to run for mayor of Hickory.
Yes.
And I need your support.
I saw a clip with you where you talked about running for mayor of Hickory.
Yes. We were doing an election episode of the podcast, and people were watching live. And I just threw out there that, yeah, I might run for mayor. Maybe I'll run for mayor. What do y'all think? And people started going, I'd vote for you, I'd vote for you, I'd vote for you.
So the citizens of Hickory should feel comfortable with their future in your hands.
I don't know about that. I'm just going to run. I'm not going to try hard. I just want to do it to make the current mayor a little nervous.
For the record, I'm still not sure if he's serious or not.
What are shoes for?
Back in Walhalla, the live laughs feel good, but it's still a slow and rough road back to the stage for comedians and the clubs with COVID capacity limits.
You're having to take less money just to keep them open and also to keep, your skills sharp.
We found him!
For now, Reep soaks up the spotlight after a year at home and revels in helping his new friend Tommy Donovan take the stage.
There he is! Surfer!
Who, by the way, isn't just a friend, he's also the original Sir
The
Perp.
cat's out of the bag.
That's right, this guy is the same guy who was in that costume all the way back in the 1990s.
That's him!
They found each other just 2 years ago, and it came full circle tonight with Donovan's first show, just miles from where it all began 25 years ago.
Turn him toe!
Life's funny sometimes, ain't it?
Reap says more and more comedy clubs are starting to open up all across the country, but it's obviously much slower than he and many of these comedy clubs would prefer as these government restrictions slowly ease up all across the country. By the way, that season that John Reap won Last Comic Standing, the person that came in 4th place, some woman named Amy Schumer, she's done pretty good for herself too. We gotta take one more break. When we come back, America's favorite pastime returns, minor league baseball, playing ball for the first time in more than 600 days. Welcome back to Front Porch Politics. I'm Tim Boy. I'm coming to you from the Bynum Front Porch here in Chatham County, the central part of the state. They are doing live music in person for the first time since 2019. And that's what we're doing here, showing the entertainment industry getting back on its feet after being shut down by government COVID restrictions. Speaking of getting back on their feet, the Carolina Mudcats doing that, and minor league baseball back on the field after more than 600 days. We were there behind the scenes talking with some homegrown talent.
It's 2 hours until first pitch at 5 County Stadium. The first pitch in more than 600 days.
Got about 2 more minutes.
As fans arrive,
How are you?
There's 4
Welcome.
tickets left.
Mother Nature has other plans. The GM, manager, and ground crew nervously stare at the weather radar on their phones.
We are in a little bit of a delay, but we do have an estimated start time of 7:35.
Patient and persistent, they wait. The truth is, the Carolina Mudcats have known patience and persistence long before this opening night.
Certainly a very weird time. We were scrambling to get ready for opening day last year.
This is Eric Gardner. He's North Carolina born and bred and a staffer with the Carolina Mudcats now for 25 plus years.
I started as an intern. My first year I worked in concessions and stadium operations. I came in my suit in February, and they sort of laughed and got me hired and said, come back tomorrow in sweatshirt and jeans. I came out, and it was early February, and I pressure washed the stadium for the next 2 weeks. Said this isn't quite what I maybe thought it might be getting into professional baseball, but I persevered.
He sure did. That patience and persistence paid off. Just this year, Gardner went from a one-time intern to general manager. What a time to take over. Last season was canceled due to COVID, and constantly changing federal, state, and Major League Baseball guidelines pushed the pace of prepping for this season.
So what's the anticipation been like getting ready for this season, especially for you now, taking on this new role?
Well, back in April, I had hair, and we took the last 7 weeks and crammed planning and trying to get the stadium ready and all those things into what is normally a 6.5 month process for us. So we've been burning the candle on both ends, as they say.
Just 24 hours before opening day, rain was also a concern. See that guy in that red shirt dragging the tarp? Yeah, that's Gardner. Everyone pitches in on a minor league baseball team, including Evan Muesta.
Born and raised in Raleigh. I started going to Mudcats games in the mid-2000s, probably when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And so I have plenty of pictures of when I was a kid, sitting right down there, sitting in the dugouts, doing all that stuff. Never in a million years would I have imagined being interested in this side of the sports industry.
Evan got a job running camera in 2016. But his true talent was multimedia. Evan's patience and persistence earned him a job as manager of multimedia, and it paid off big time. He has a knack for posting memorable moments, like this military reunion surprise. Or a foul ball that ends up more like a hole-in-one.
It's going to come back, though. Down into the stands it goes, lands in someone's lap. He's got it. Oh, landed in his beer cup.
But it was one particular moment where he really found his groove.
In 2019, I was out on a road game in Fayetteville, and I had gotten there before the game, and a couple of our players were dancing in the dugout. Captured it, posted it on, I guess, Twitter at the time that night, and it went crazy. So I was there the next day. They knew I was going to be there the next day, so the dances got crazier. And then by that Sunday, they escalated to just an insane level of dancing and dugout festivities. And so I think that was definitely the anchor during 2020 of our content that we posted.
A couple of Evan's TikTok posts surpassed 1 million views, one now at 2.1 million. The Mudcats have more followers than some Major League Baseball teams, including the St. Louis Cardinals. All of this during the pandemic with no games. Patience and persistence paying off again, even when Evan and many of his colleagues in minor league baseball faced furloughs due to COVID.
As a professional and as somebody who really enjoys their craft, I think it, in a weird way, helped mold a lot of us and made a lot of us better. It was an off season and off time that a lot of us don't really ever get. It was very unique. It was something that I kind of joked around. It was like a first summer break that I had had in a very long time.
Thankfully, that break is over, but it will still look different. Smaller crowds, Major League Baseball requiring face masks, and players are isolated from staff and fans. Even poor Muddy the mascot has to stay off the field.
So how did you end up with the Mudcats? Uh-oh. I don't know if it's me or him frozen.
And even though we're just an outfield away, I had to interview rookie Noah Campbell via Zoom. And guess what? We faced the same technology struggles we've all faced.
I had him for a second.
Campbell's a local kid. Grew up in Durham, went to high school in Raleigh, and played college ball in South Carolina. His rookie year was supposed to be last year, but, well, COVID.
It was crazy. So I played at South Carolina, and we played 4 weeks. Season gets canceled. Not really sure what's going on, kind of in limbo. And then I signed a contract and don't end up playing for a whole year, which is just insane to think about. And then come back and for spring training this year. And I'm excited to be back in North Carolina playing for the Mudcats. It's going to be awesome.
Welcome back to Five County Stadium, home of your Carolina Mudcats.
As the radar cleared, that patience and persistence paid off one more time. The entire Mudcats crew, GM Eric Gardner included, pulled off the tarp. And baseball returned to Zebulon for the first time in more than 600 days. A memorable opening day. But for the new general manager, as wild as it sounds, it still won't top 2012.
My wife was here with my oldest child, and she jokingly told me that she was going into labor. And she said, "I'm just kidding, we're going home." And she called about 11 o'clock and said, "I think you need to come home." And about 6 hours later, we welcomed our second child. So that'll always ring big as just what opening night, no matter when it is, means in our family.
So many families making their own memories here in 2021. A year to remember after a year to forget in 2020.
Mudcats officials hope that more and more people can get in the stands as Governor Cooper lifts some of these COVID restrictions in the coming weeks, but they will still need permission from Major League Baseball. They're hoping that comes soon. We got to hit the road, but we'll have more fascinating stories with fascinating people here in the great state of North Carolina next month. We'll see you then.